Hi and welcome to this first episode on how to use Adobe Premiere Pro. This is a tutorial for those who are new to using the program and want to get to grips with the fundamental basics. In this first episode then, we're going to look at firstly setting up a new project, so how you kind of open Premiere and set up a new project with all the correct settings. How you can import your footage, so if you've been out filming, how do you actually get it into Premiere to use it. Then I'm going to show you how to create a timeline or a sequence, same thing, different language. I'm going to show you how to add clips to your timeline then, so how to put your video clips that you filmed and arrange them on a timeline. And I'm going to show you the difference between setting in and out points on clips versus trimming them on the timeline. So the first thing we need to do before we actually go into Premiere is to make sure that we've captured all of the footage off our cards. So if you've been filming on a Blackmagic or a Sony, for example, you'll have taken the cards with all your footage on from the camera, and you'll need to plug them into a card reader, attach them to your computer, and you'll need to copy them onto your computer. So I've already done that, and I've got all of my footage saved here on my Lacy external hard drive. So I've got a couple of folders here with some footage in that I've been using recently. Okay, so we can see here in the Cuckoo folder, for example, I've got a couple of cards worth of footage that I've copied here. So make sure before you do anything else that you copy the files off your card onto your computer. So when we open Premiere Pro, we'll be presented with the landing page. So the landing page, there's several things going on here on the landing screen. First of all, at the top here, we can see we've got some tutorials that are really useful, especially if you're new to Premiere Pro. Adobe have some excellent tutorials that walk you through a range of different techniques and features of their kind of programs. So do have a look at tutorials. Beneath that, we've got existing projects that we've already started editing. So down here, we've got a list of different projects that I've been working on recently. So I can scroll down, and if I want to open a project I've been working on recently, for example, Cuckoo, I could just give that a click and open it up. Next to that though, up the top left, this is what we're going to look at today. We're going to learn how to set up a new project first and foremost. So if you give new project a click, it's going to open up the project settings. So we've got several different things that we can change here before we start our project. So first of all, we're going to give it a name. So I'm going to name this Cuckoo, which is the name of my film, test. Beneath that, it says what location the project's going to be saved in. So it's going to be saved on my computer under my username in the movies folder, in a separate folder that I've made called Premiere Pro Project Files. If you want to change where it's saved, just click Browse, select a folder on your hard drive that you want to save it on, make a new folder, give it a name that makes sense. So I'm going to go Movies, Premiere Pro Project Files. I'm going to click Choose. Beneath that then, we've got some general settings. I would recommend for this project just leave them as they are. Next to the general settings tab, we've got scratch disks. So scratch disks are essentially save locations for different types of media and files that are associated with our Premiere project. So any captured video or audio, it says here, they're going to be saved in the same place as the project. And beneath that, it shows you exactly what folder it's going to be saved in. Likewise, video and audio previews, which are something Premiere is going to create that will enable you to watch your project in the project window in real time. Autosave files, really important. We need those. So project autosave, so you can set up an autosave, so periodically it will save your project just in case Premiere crashes. You won't lose that much. So that's also set at the moment as the same as the project. However, we can browse and select a different location for any of these that we want. So say I wanted to curate my autosave file in a completely separate location, perhaps in my documents folder. I could make a new folder there, and I'll call it Premiere Autosaves. And then I'd click Create. Now I'm just going to keep it in the same place as everything else, just because it makes sense to keep your files together. Last tab is Ingest settings. Essentially, this is a way to make sure that if you haven't already copied your footage onto your hard drive, we do have the option within this to say whenever we import any footage, it will copy. For this to happen, ingest is another word for kind of importing, essentially. I'm going to tick the ingest box, and I want to select the copy option. This basically means that whenever I import footage into my Premiere project, it will copy that footage and it will save it in the same location as my project is saved. So I could, again, choose a different location if I wanted. So this is only really useful for two reasons, or for a few reasons actually. but when you're starting out in Premiere and you're just learning the basics, this is just a way of making sure that if you import footage off a card, it's going to copy it onto your computer so that you don't then eject the card and lose everything. But like I say, the first step should always be copying the footage off your card to the computer before you even open Premiere. So this is only really applicable if you haven't done that. So I'm going to untick Ingest because I don't need that, because I've already copied the footage off. So I'm going to click OK now. So I've got my name, where it's been saved, all my settings are set up as I want them to be. I've not really changed anything. I'm now presented with Premiere Pro. So we've opened up Premiere Pro. Now along the top of Premiere Pro, you'll see there are several tabs. So I've got Assembly, Editing, Color, Effects, Audio, Captions and Graphics and Libraries. So these tabs here allow me to reconfigure my Premiere Pro editing space, and it will show me essentially different options. So first of all, let's talk through these. So Assembly, first of all, this is where we're going to start in using Premiere. So this is where we put together our first cut, which is called an assembly edit, where essentially we're going to put the story together on a timeline in order. The next tab is Editing. Okay, so this is where we're going to fine tune our edit and where we can tweak our effect controls for any effects we've added. Next to that, we've got the Color tab. So this is where we do any color correction and grading. Next to that, we've got the Effects tab, where we can add audio and video effects and transitions using these effects folders on the side, which are essentially drag and drop with the effects. We drag them onto our clips on our timeline. Next to that, we've got Audio, where we're going to mix and master our sound. And then finally, we've got Captions and Graphics, which is really useful for transcribing and subtitling. So I'm going to go back to my Assembly tab, which is where we're going to start. So what we want to do, the first thing, is we're going to import our footage in. So let's talk through our Assembly Edit screen. So on the left-hand side here, we can see we've got the project folder. Okay, this is where any footage we import is going to be displayed in a list or as thumbnails for us to quickly look through. Next to that, we've got the program window. This is going to display the video. Okay, so we can see what we're watching, and there's some controls here for playing, stopping, going to our in and out points, which I'll discuss in a moment. Beneath that, we've got the timeline, which is our sequence. So this is where we're going to assemble our edit. So we're going to put clips onto a timeline down here in time order, where we can move them around. And then next to that, we've got the tools down the side, which are really useful for how we use our timeline, for moving stuff around, trimming it. So the first thing we need to do is import footage into our project. So I'm going to essentially get my video and put it into Premiere. So this is called importing. So there's a couple of different ways we can do this. First of all, I could go up the top and go File, Import, navigate on my hard drive to where the footage is saved. So I'm going to import the first two clips here, so 41, and I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard so I can select the multiple files. And it's not actually going to import those XML files. I'm going to click Import. Let's come up with an error there. Just because it's not going to import the XMLs. But we can see here now 2 clips have appeared in the project window, and if I double click on the little icon there, it's going to bring them up in the source window, and I can play and watch through them there. Another way I can import is I can hold down Control and right click in the project window, and I can go Import, and exactly the same then. Let's import 46 and 47. And again, if I double click, it will bring up the footage there. The third and final way that I can import is I can hold down Command and I, which is a keyboard shortcut, and I can import my footage this way here. So I'm going to bring in these clips. Perfect. Now, once we've looked through our clips and we've kind of decided actually, these first 4 I don't need. These were when I was testing the camera. I can, if I want, I can delete them. So I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard, select those first 4 clips there, and I'm just going to hit Control and then go Clear. That's going to get rid of them. So now I've just got the footage that I need here, which is a few different takes of a couple of different shots. So I've imported footage in. At the moment, I'm displaying it on list view, which I find really useful because I can go through, see the clip name. If I drag this out so I can see a bit more, I can see how long the clip is, loads of useful footage. I can see what the filming resolution is. I can add a description of any clips here. So for example, this one here, I could say close up Adam which is my actor's name. This one here is midshot, Adam, window. So I can essentially add on a few more details that makes it easier for me to navigate what these clips are. I could also, if I wanted, I could look at the clips instead of as a list as thumbnails. So down the bottom here, we'll see at the moment I'm on a list view. So I could go to icon view, and this brings up a quick thumbnail, and I can just skim through the clip by holding my mouse or my cursor over and moving it backwards and forwards. So that's also very, very useful to do. So once we've imported the footage into our project and we've got all of the clips in that we think we're going to need, we can organise them into a little bit more sense if we like. So here, for example, I could make a new bin. So a bin essentially is a folder that you can store clips in. And I'm going to call this Scene 1 Bedroom. And then I'm going to add on, I'm going to click and hold down Shift. I'm going to select all my Scene 1 Bedroom clips, and I'm going to put them in the Scene 1 Bedroom folder. Likewise, I could make a folder that's Scene 2 Hallway. And I could add all the hallway clips into there as well. It's really a great idea to get organised early in editing in your project bin, so it makes it really quick and easy for you to navigate through your bin to find the clips that you need. Okay, so I'm going to drag my description over so that it's the first thing that I can see next to the clip name. So get organised early, write a brief description of what your clip is, make folders for all your different scenes, or for any way that makes sense for you to organise your footage so you can quickly and easily scan through it and find what you're looking for. So now we've imported our footage, we've organised it a little bit. The next thing we need to do is actually start editing. So before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to go back up to the top and we're going to go File, New, Sequence. So sequence essentially is where we're going to edit our footage. Now I filmed this in RAW, so what I'm going to do is you select the appropriate setting here. If you filmed in HD, you can use a HDV, find out what the settings for your resolution and your frame rate were, and choose the appropriate one. So mine, I'm going to do ProRes RAW 4K. It was 25 frames a second, I think. Let's just find out what my frame rate was. Yeah, frame rate 25 frames a second. So File, New, Sequence, ProRes RAW 25 frames a second. And I'm going to call my sequence. We give it a name, so don't just go sequence 1 or sequence 2. I'm going to call this my assembly edit. Okay, and here we go. So it's made a new timeline down the bottom here now. So the timeline is composed of video tracks, so V1, V2, V3, so this is where we drop video, and audio tracks A1, A2, A3. So when you drop a video on, it will have video and audio, and they'll be attached together. If you've got some music, you can put music on the audio tracks as well. So how do we start to add footage to our timeline? Well, what we can do is we can just drag and drop it. So I'm going to just find a clip. I can drag and drop that whole clip on there. Okay. What that's going to do though is it's got the whole clip, including all my pre-roll and post-roll, me talking with the actors, and it's not actually just a bit of the clip I need. So what I could do is I could trim my clip on the timeline, and there's a couple of different ways I could do that. I figure out what bit of the clip I need, so I'm going to hit the play button. See, I've got a lot of this clip where the actor's not in it, so there's where they start to come. If I figure out where I want my clip to start, I can move the playhead, which is this line here that essentially shows me what I'm looking at on this screen, to where I want the clip to start. I can hover my mouse over the beginning of the clip and it turns into this red icon with an arrow pointing left or right. I'm going to click, hold down, the end of the clips will go red, and with it held down, I'm going to drag it over to the playhead. That's now got rid of the start of that clip on the timeline. It hasn't destroyed anything about the clip in the project file. The whole clip is still there, but on the timeline it's got rid of that. Likewise, if I want to set the end point now, I move along to where I want the take to end, which is going to be with him looking out the window. I'm going to hover my mouse over the end of the clip. The red icon with the arrow comes up again. I click and hold down again, and with it held down, I move the clip so that it snaps to the project head. So now I've just got the part of the clip that I want. Now, that's quite a fiddly way to trim my clip on the timeline. So instead, what I like to do is set the in and the out points, which essentially means that before I put my clip on the timeline, I've already said the part of the clip I want. So to do that, double click the clip in the project window. It brings it up in the source window. Scroll along to where you want your clip to start, which is with him walking into shot. And then we're going to set what we call the in point. So the in point essentially is the start of the clip that we want to take. So to do that, hover your mouse over this little icon down here and it says mark in. So I could give that a click. And the keyboard shortcut for that is I. So if I wanted to, I could just move my cursor and hit I to set the in point to wherever I wanted. So I'm going to hit I again there to set the in point. Likewise, move it to the end of your clip where you want to cut. You can hover your mouse over the mark out icon just below, or as it says there, there's a keyboard shortcut which is O. So I'm going to hit the O button to set the out point. Likewise, I could just click the icon to set the out point. Now we'll see that on this on the timeline in the source window, which shows me the length of the clip, it's created this little area between two little what look like blue points here, and we've got a highlighted part. So this is the part of the clip that I've marked in and out. So this is the active part of the clip. Now what I can do is I can hit insert here, so I could click the insert icon or hit the little comma button on my keyboard, and it's going to add that onto your timeline wherever your playhead is. Likewise, if I double click it to bring it back up, I could also just click and hold down on the picture and drag it onto the timeline. So I could just drag that down wherever I wanted it. So that's setting the in and out points and adding it, and I find it to be a much quicker, a more precise way of editing clips on the timeline than dragging the whole clip down and dragging the start and end points around. Another thing we can do is if I get another clip, if I drag the whole of this clip down on the timeline, we can also use the razor tool. So over here on the tool window here, we've got what looks like a little razor blade. So if I click the razor tool to select that, what I can do instead is I could literally cut my clip up on the timeline using the razor tool. So I've just clicked in 2 different points. Now if I go back to my selection tool, which is useful for moving clips around on a timeline, you see I've actually cut that clip up into 3 separate little clips, and I could just delete the bits that I don't want from that. However, I'm quite happy with what I've put for my in and my out points. So one important thing to remember is if you delete something off the timeline, it doesn't delete it from your project window. If you set in and out points, you're not setting it to the project clip, just to the clip that goes on the timeline. So essentially clips on the timeline are completely separate to your clips in your project window. These will always remain in their original form, whereas clips you put on the timeline, you can edit, color correct, mess around with the sound, and it will only affect those that are on the timeline. It won't affect essentially the master clip that it's referencing. So a couple of things then. So let's have a look beneath that now. Let's have a look at my sequence, so the actual timeline. So I can move the playhead along, going through the time on the clip. I'm going to grab another clip and put that there. So I can move my playhead along. At the moment, I'm quite zoomed out, so with this little clip here, it's tricky. I can hit the spacebar to play it, or I can hit the play button there to play it, and also to stop it. But this clip it's quite small. If I wanted to do any fine editing, it'd be difficult to do that with that small clip, because it's so small it makes it difficult to work with. So on the bottom here, you'll see you've got a little bar that you can move along. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag that in to zoom in essentially on my timeline. So this is just zoomed in on the clip. And this way, if I've put my in and my out point, and then I've put my clip on the timeline, but I've decided actually I need to cut a little bit before what I'd thought, then now I can click and drag on the end of the clip and move it. If I've made a gap between 2 clips that I want to close, I could always physically move the clip, or I could click in the gap that's created between it, hit backspace on my keyboard, and it will ripple edit it. So it will delete that space in between the blank space to put them together again. Now here we can see I've got, I moved the camera at the start of this clip. So again, I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to delete that. So now those clips should work much more together. There you go, that's looking good. So We've got our project window. We now know how to import footage. We know how to organize our footage, make folders, write descriptions for each clip. We know how our our program window and our source window works. The program window references what's on the timeline. The source window is for any clip that we select in our project bin to have a look through. When we've selected a clip in our project bin, we can set the in and the out points by clicking these icons here, or by hitting I and O on the keyboard to set the in and out points. We can drag it down onto the timeline, or we can hit insert, which will put it wherever our playhead is. You see that's actually inserted it onto the V1 window. So I'm going to select V2 there. There we go. We can move stuff around on the timeline by using the selection tool to literally drag our clips into order on the timeline so we can move stuff around. We can zoom in and out on the timeline using this bar at the bottom. And we can use the razor tool to slice up clips for where we want to do any kind of particularly fine editing to remove the start and end of a clip. To remove a clip from the timeline, click it to select it and hit backspace on your keyboard. Okay, or you can use the box tool. So essentially, if I click and drag in any of the empty space on timeline, I can drag out a box to select multiple clips. I can move them all around if I wanted, or I could hit backspace to delete them. So those are the fundamental basics of how to set up a new project and how to start doing your assembly edit. So the assembly edit, remember, is putting your story in order, whatever it may be. Once we've got our story in order, then we can do what we call a fine cut then. So we can go through and trim it, make it nicer, really make sure that all the clips work well together, that we add transitions, we can add color, grading, effects, we can master our audio using all of these different tabs up the top. So if you've got any more questions, please feel free to ask me. Come and find me in the office or send me an email. Thank you very much for watching this first episode.